After spending millions of dollars on them, Victoria's so-called sobering up centres have had a total of 417 people walk through their doors in 5 months. Yet Premier Jacinta Allen has committed a further $53 million to run several more regional operations over the next 2 years. Make sense? No, not to me either. Let's bring in my panel now, Hilmer's Network Executive Director Charlotte Mortlock and my radio co-host from Hughesy Adnerin on Today FM, Dave Hughes. Great to see you both.
Thanks, Erin.
Great to be here.
I can't look at you and not laugh. It's very difficult to do serious things. Let me ask you first, Hughesy. You're sober and you have been since you were 21, so you've clearly no need for these centres. Are they a good idea, do you think?
Well, look, I was locked up many times before I became sober. I locked up for being drunk by the police. One of the reasons I am now sober is because I got sick of waking up in prison, to be honest. Look, they could be a good idea, I imagine, if people did use them. But isn't it voluntary that you don't have to go with the people? I believe there's buses where they'll come and if there's a drunk person and they'll ask the drunk person if they want to get on the bus and go to the sober up centre. And I know back when I was drinking, I would have said no, basically, and I think anyone can say no. So, yeah, back there, the police actually forced you to do it. I don't think these people at the sober up centres are forcing people to do it. And I imagine people are just saying no, because when you're really, really drunk, as I used to get, you are really, really confused. And so when someone comes up to you and says, come with me, your first idea is to say no, because you probably think they're taking you to a shallow grave somewhere, to be honest. So I don't know if it's been well thought through.
I think you've identified a major flaw in the argument, absolutely. Charlotte, what's your take?
Look, I did read the article. I absolutely think it's a good idea and certainly one with good intentions. What seems to be where it goes a bit funny for me or a bit askew is that they said that of every night they're averaging around 3 people in the facility when they've got beds for 26. So I don't understand why there's so much funding to scale up this initiative when it sounds more like they might even need to scale down. I still think it should exist. It sounds like, you know, a great initiative, but unless I'm missing something, it seems like a lot of beds there are going to waste.
Last week we spoke about the NFL. Oh, let's go, Dave. Let's get your solution.
Well, could they go to the pub and get people who aren't that drunk, who just really don't want to spend the money on an Uber home? I reckon if you got people at the pub who just wanted somewhere to stay for the night, you would fill up the rooms really well. So
would
maybe
you charge
they can
them though? Because taxpayers don't want to pay for that. You'd have to charge them a fee. I'm not paying for some bloke
a reduced fee. I know, but if no one's going to be in the... Just $20, all right? So if the bed's empty, $20. We can make this work. We absolutely
cost of
can.
living.
And you can have beer at the centres. Maybe you got beer at the centres.
No, I really like it. You're a business. You're an ideas man. Now, last week we spoke about the NFL star Harrison Butker, and he made this infamous now speech at a university or college graduation and talking about homemaking and some of his ideas. And look, I don't agree with most of what he had to say, absolutely. But now there's like petitions to cancel him, sack him from the team. And Charlotte, you went on social media this week and put it in one of the cleverest ways I've ever seen in terms of this ridiculous cancel culture. Why do we care? We don't have to cancel everything we dislike.
No, it's this entire policing of the internet that we're now seeing that, you know, I am a very staunch feminist. You know, I really am there for the cause and for the empowerment of women. I don't agree with what he said in his speeches about the, you know, women basically needing to spend more time at home. They need to be mothers and wives and that should be their main calling. I don't agree with it. Simultaneously, I'm not offended by it. I'm not going to demand that he is sacked. I'm not going to, you know, he's getting death threats now. I think that is way over the top. I think as a society, we have completely lost the ability to see something in our feed and say, interesting. I don't agree with it. I don't want to go to dinner with that guy. I don't want to be his friend, but I also don't need to have this massive pile-on. And it's like at the moment we have this kind of fringe ideology that is so totalitarian, and anyone who strays from this script of what you are allowed to say is, you know, exiled and ostracized from society.
It's stupid.
And just why do we care? Like, put your effort elsewhere. And I just think it's so silly that we also need to, like, we're calling it out so we can say, well, you know, I'm against that. He doesn't care. He's not seeing your post back in Australia. And it's also
no
like,
one cares. It's
that's
exhausting.
About you. It's about, and it's about your ego. It's about you saying, I'm above this. I'm so righteous. It's like, get over yourself.
You know who I blame for all of this? I blame Taylor Swift, because if she didn't go out with Travis Kelce, who's a Kansas City Chief footballer, this guy wouldn't be famous. This guy's also a Kansas City.
I thought we were.
It's a good
Isn't
point.
he a Kansas City Chief footballer, this guy as well?
He's a teammate. He is.
Yeah, so if Taylor Swift hadn't gone out with Travis Kelce, well, we wouldn't care what any Kansas City Chief footballer thought. So this guy wouldn't have got to done the speech at that university, and we wouldn't hear about it. The guy wears a helmet for his own safety during his workplace. So they get concussions. He shouldn't be listened to, right?
Yeah, I think maybe he might have been upset now that Kelce and Taylor have drawn so many women to the Kansas NFL team. I don't even know this. I don't even know what they're called. But now they've got the attention.
Hughesy and I spend 3 hours a morning on radio attempting not to be cancelled, and that is exhausting. If we could relax a little more, it'd be a much better product. And it's a good product, right, Hughesy?
It would be.
But how can we be cancelled when, you know, it's the presidencies in America is between Biden and Trump? I mean, both of those guys just say so many wacky things on a moment-by-moment basis, and, you know, one of them is going to be the leader of the free world for the next 4 years. No one's going to be cancelled.
But I do think there's also this interesting thing where the argument against cancel culture is they say, oh, he hasn't been cancelled, he's got a platform. So sure, maybe they're not cancelled, like maybe you haven't lost everything in your life, but nevertheless, it is a pile-on. And I think we have to think as a society, is it helpful to do pile-ons? And I would argue that it's not. And often, the more you pounce on someone and say, you're wrong on that, you're wrong on that, very rarely will they turn and say, oh, I have seen the light, you are right, let me change my mind.
And the more attention they get, Charlotte, the more attention they get. Now, I want to get to this last one. A Sydney man who's died this month has become the first ever person in the Southern Hemisphere to be frozen. Now, it's in the hope of bringing him back to life in the future. Now, the man in his 80s paid Southern Cryonics $170,000 to have his temperature brought down to minus 200 degrees Celsius before he was placed in a tank where he will remain until the technology exists to revive him. Hughesy, if I was going to do this, I'd want to do it where I was a little bit nimbler and more attractive. Like, I'd maybe try and go 30. Freeze me at 30 so I can wake up hot. What do you think?
All right, so you want to be frozen now. Yeah, I understand that. So I don't think it's worth it, is it? I really don't. But I wouldn't trust my own family to keep the power on either, to be honest. So they would take my cord out and just plug in their charger for their iPhone, and I would just I would defrost and it'd be all over. So I think this guy's kidding himself.
Charlotte, are you hopeful of maybe tapping into this technology at some stage?
Reading this story was like an emotional roller coaster for me. Like, when I read the headline, there was curiosity, and then there was panic because they didn't know if they were going to be able to actually freeze him correctly, and that sounded very awful. It was just such an emotional roller coaster. And the only thing I could take away at the end was that this is a gentleman who has, you know, decided to dedicate his body to science, and I actually think that that's cool. That if you are going to be dying, and then what better way to put your body towards science to either, you know, this isn't like a medical, it doesn't sound like it's a medical reason, but I think if you're going out of the world, that's probably a good way to go.
I mean, is life that great that you'd want to come back and extend it? I mean, really?
With none of your friends as well.
True.
It'd be lonely.
I don't have many, so that wouldn't be my biggest concern. Dave Hughes, Charlotte Mortlock, you are both absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for giving us a very different spin this afternoon.